Welcome to Starwatch Now, your front row seat to all the hottest gossip, drama, and breaking news from the world of entertainment. If it's trending, shocking, or star-studded, we're covering it. Stay tuned. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Have you ever seen Wang Yibo truly smile? Not the polite, picture-perfect grin we see at fashion shows or interviews, but a real, unguarded smile. Finally happened. And it wasn't just the smile that melted millions of hearts. It was who made him smile. Her name? Meiqi, a familiar name from his past. His childhood sweetheart. Before fame colored their worlds with flashes of light and the unending echo of applause, Wang Yibo and Meiqi were simply two children chasing a dream that only the most devoted could understand. In Luoyang, Hunan, there stood a modest dance studio. Its mirrors cracked at the edges, the air filled with the sound of rhythm and persistence. There, a young boy, quiet yet determined, helped guide the younger students through complicated steps. His name was Wang Yibo. Among the students who watched him with both admiration and curiosity was a girl named Meiqi. She was spirited, radiant, full of energy, and sometimes clumsy in her eagerness to perfect every movement. Together, they grew under the same rhythm of music, each mistake and correction building not only their skill but their connection. Yibo, though still a child, possessed an unusual focus. He didn't talk much, but when he danced, his movements spoke volumes. He was disciplined, composed, and oddly mature for his age. Meiqi, in contrast, carried light wherever she went. She laughed easily, encouraged others, and often lingered after class to practice just a little longer. The instructors saw something special in both of them, but perhaps more importantly, they saw how naturally their energies balanced each other. Where he was silence, she was sound. Where he was precision, she was freedom. Outside the studio, life was ordinary. They took buses home, carrying worn-out shoes and dreams that seemed far too large for their small city. Sometimes, they would stay behind, practicing until the lights dimmed and only their reflections danced in the mirror. It was in those quiet moments that the bond between them began to form, not one of romance or fame, but of understanding. Two souls bound by the same language of effort and the same hope to turn passion into purpose. Neither of them could have known that those days would become the foundation of everything that followed. The fame, the recognition, the exhaustion. All of it would one day circle back to those long afternoons in Luoyang, when they were nothing more than two young dreamers learning to move in harmony with life itself. And perhaps that is why, years later, when their paths crossed again, his smile carried the warmth of 1,000 unspoken memories. Years passed, and the children from that humble dance studio in Luoyang grew into two artists shaped by discipline and distance. Wang Yibo, once the quiet boy who helped younger students with their steps, had become a global figure, a mentor, performer, an icon of precision. Meiqi, the spirited girl who had once stumbled through pirouettes and laughed at her own mistakes, had carved her own path as a rising star. Life had scattered them into different worlds, and yet, fate has a curious way of orchestrating reunions when hearts are ready. It happened on the stage of Produce 101. The air was alive with tension, cameras flashing, hundreds of trainees trembling under the gaze of the audience. And among them stood Meiqi, confident but nervous, carrying both the hopes of her team and the quiet memories of the boy who once showed her how to find balance. When Yibo entered, calm and composed as always, the room seemed to change. His presence was magnetic, his expression unreadable. But for a brief moment, when his eyes found hers across the stage, something softened. The facade of the perfect mentor cracked, just enough to let through a trace of something familiar. Recognition, warmth, perhaps even gratitude. That small exchange might have lasted less than a second, yet it held the weight of years unspoken. It was not dramatic or theatrical. It was human. It reminded everyone watching that behind the stage lights and the calculated image of a celebrity lies a lifetime of moments that built them. The internet would later explode with analyses, theories, and excitement. But what truly mattered was the truth within that silence. The understanding shared by two people who once danced under the same flickering lights in a forgotten studio. For Meiqi, That moment must have been both grounding and surreal. To see how far they had come, and to realize that the boy who once guided her through rhythm and form had now become an icon she could stand beside. For Yibo, perhaps it was a moment of clarity, a fleeting return to simplicity. In that smile, rare and unguarded, the world saw not the mentor, not the star, but the boy from Luoyang who once believed that passion, when shared, could outlast time itself. And in that instant, millions watching felt it too. There are moments so brief they almost escape notice, yet they linger in memory far longer than words ever could. Wang Yibo's smile that day was one of them. It lasted no more than a heartbeat, but in that instant, the distance between the idol and the audience disappeared. It was not the polished expression of a public figure trained to maintain composure, nor was it the courteous smile reserved for the camera. It was something infinitely simpler and purer, a spontaneous reminder of humanity. The world has watched Yibo for years. The controlled grace, the perfect timing, the quiet intensity that defines him on every stage. Yet this time he wasn't performing. That small curve of his lips, that fleeting warmth in his eyes, spoke louder than any rehearsed gesture could. For those who have followed his journey, the image of Yibo has always been one of restraint and discipline, a man built from steel and silence. To see that image dissolve into something so tender felt almost surreal. Some viewers replayed the moment again and again, trying to decode it, while others simply felt it without explanation. What they witnessed was not an act but an opening, the kind that only happens when someone forgets to guard themselves. In that tiny lapse, Yibo's humanity shone through, unfiltered, honest, and deeply moving. It reminded people that even perfection holds its fractures, and sometimes it is those small cracks through which light truly enters. The smile wasn't about charm or appearance. It was a reflection of memory, of recognition, perhaps even of gratitude. Behind that expression lay years of effort, exhaustion, and perseverance. The struggle to remain true in an industry that demands constant control. And when that control slipped, even for a second, what emerged was something more beautiful than perfection itself. Sincerity. Millions saw it, but each interpreted it differently. To some, it was nostalgia. To others, a sign of emotional release. But to everyone, it was real. It reminded them that beneath every flawless performance lies a heart capable of warmth, vulnerability, and joy. That is the power of one smile. It bridges the unreachable, softens the untouchable, and tells the world that even those who seem untouchable still remember how to feel. In that single, unguarded moment, Wang Yibo became not an idol, but a man, and the world loved him more for it. This story isn't just about a possible love from the past. It's about how humanity still shines through fame, pressure, and expectations. It's about remembering that idols aren't machines programmed to be perfect. They are dreamers who stumble, learn, and feel just like the rest of us. Meiqi herself once said in an interview, "Sometimes, one small moment can remind you who you really are." Perhaps that's exactly what happened to Yibo that day. Perhaps that smile was not for the camera, nor for the fans, but for a memory, a feeling, a chapter that still lives quietly in his heart. In a world obsessed with perfection, Wang Yibo's smile reminds us of something beautifully simple, that authenticity never goes out of style. True charm doesn't lie in the flawless performance, but in the moments that break the script. And maybe that's why this one smile became more powerful than 1,000 headlines. It wasn't about drama. It was about truth. If the story touched you, imagine how many more untold moments are waiting behind the scenes of your favorite stars. At Starwatch now, we uncover the heart behind the fame, the stories that make celebrities human again. So if you haven't already, hit subscribe, like, and ring the bell, because every week, we bring you the most heartfelt stories from across Asia's entertainment world. Thank you for watching. Stay kind, stay curious, and remember, even the brightest stars sometimes shine their warmest when they simply smile. Glowing star.